We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India will host Russian President Vladimir Putin for bilateral summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, set to strengthen the special and privileged strategic partnership. Hectic diplomacy continues over Ukraine peace plan. A Trump envoy to meet Ukraine negotiator in Miami. Kremlin says work on Ukraine proposals going on. U.S. military activity surges in Puerto Rico even as Venezuelan President Maduro confirms call with Trump, terms the talk respectful and cordial. And the second ODI, Virat Kohli and Ruturaj Gaikwad's ton failed to deter South Africa as Proteas successfully chased record total of 358 runs to level 3-match series at 1-1. And on to the details now. Russian President Vladimir Putin will arrive in India on Thursday for a high-stake two-day state visit, his first since the year 2021. He will join Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit, aimed at taking the bilateral partnership to a qualitatively new level. Now, ahead of the visit, security has been tightened across the capital for this pivotal summit. DD India's Rabindra Chauhan has more details.
Ahead of his high-stake two-day state visit to India, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday that Moscow aims to elevate cooperation with India to a qualitatively new level with deeper economic engagement.
We aim to elevate cooperation with the People's Republic of China and the Republic of India to a qualitatively new level by strengthening its technological component. We have numerous joint projects in energy, industry, space, agriculture and other sectors. We will also discuss these topics in detail during the upcoming visit to India with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, including increasing imports of Indian goods to our market.
Cooperation between India and Russia spans various key sectors like defense, trade, energy, nuclear energy, space, science and technology, culture and education. The two-day visit will include bilateral talks and a business forum focused on trade, energy, defense, space and agriculture.
This is the 23rd summit. That means both the sides at every level have invested a great deal of political capital in taking it forward. I still remember that when he had come here in December 2021, at that time, the conflict had not started, but the tensions around Ukraine were going on. And Mr. Putin was on Indian soil for barely 4 hours. But still, he invested that much of time, effort, energy to come, basically to send out a message that this relationship is very important for Russia.
India and Russia share a long-standing trusted partnership elevated to a special and privileged strategic partnership in 2010. This year's summit will review the full range of bilateral cooperation. Defense ties remain an important area in the bilateral relations, with joint R&D and cooperation under Make in India. Both sides also coordinate closely on multilateral forums like the UN, G20, BRICS and SCO. India advocates reform in the SCO, including designating English as an official working language, while SCO regional anti-terrorist structure continues to be crucial in counter-terrorism cooperation. Government-to-government ties remain strong with frequent leader-level meetings and phone calls. Regular ministerial visits reflect sustained momentum in bilateral relations. Putin's visit is being viewed positively across party lines in India, with opposition leaders also welcoming it with optimism. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor said the visit is extremely important.
We talked for a long time about strategic autonomy. We have to preserve our negotiating space. For us, we cannot mortgage our autonomy to any other country's interests. We have to have independent relationships with all these countries. And Russia is an old relationship, it's a serious relationship, it's a strong relationship, and one where obviously we have very many fundamental interests at stake. So I think we will have to see this relationship, how it moves after this visit, but it's a very important visit for our country.
The enthusiasm of President Putin's visit to India is also visible on the artistic landscape. An artist in New Delhi has prepared a portrait of President Putin alongside images of India's present and past prime ministers, symbolic of a strong and enduring friendship between the two countries. Ahead of the high-profile visit, security agencies are on high alert with an extensive security grid deployed across the national capital, covering all routes and engagements. Bureau Report, DD India.
And India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and his Russian counterpart Andrei Belousov to review the full spectrum of bilateral defence ties, including military and military technical cooperation. Both the leaders will co-chair the 22nd India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Military and Military Technical Cooperation in New Delhi. The two ministers will also exchange views on contemporary, regional and global issues of mutual interest. Also, a two-day India-Russia Business Forum is slated to kick off in the national capital on December 4th and 5th, coinciding with Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to India. On the first day of the forum, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, along with Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office of the Russian Federation, Maxim Orishkin, will participate in the forum. Now, the forum will explore various areas of Russian-Indian cooperation, including expanding Indian engineering products in Russia, increasing Russia's purchases of Indian food products, pharmaceutical goods and collaboration in digital services as the two countries eye to boost their bilateral trade target by the year 2030. And ahead of President Vladimir Putin's visit, Indian Business Alliance President Sami Manoj Kotwani said the trip is more about shaping the future of friendship between the two nations. He stressed that both the nations must move from being buying partners to manufacturing partners.
I think this visit is not about defense or energy. This visit is more about our friendship. What will be our goal for next 10 to 15 years is going to be a very important visit. We are moving forward from buying partners to the manufacturing partners. We need to make everything together, and thinking about that only we can grow, and it's very sound future for all our business people in Russia.
Well, ahead of Russian President Vladimir Putin's India visit, RT editor and executive producer India Ksenia Kondrateva highlighted the growth and stability in India-Russia ties. She said India-Russia defense ties are shifting from buying to joint production and development, fueled by India's self-reliance and Russia's recognition of its capabilities.
In any area of defense where you see there is a progress, and that progress is towards core development, core production, I think it's important for both countries because, of course, Russia is realizing India's potential, India's strive for sovereignty on these matters, and India's strive to be self-reliant and independent. To have its own capabilities, and I think there's a lot of respect in Russia for that kind of strive.
Well, a flurry of diplomacy, uncertain outcomes and a conflict entering a critical chapter. After weeks of intensive talks, the path to peace in Ukraine remains clouded in mystery and conflicting messages. The United States, Russia and Ukraine have been locked in high-stakes negotiations, and while officials on all sides insist progress is being made, no one seems willing to say just how close they really are to a breakthrough. More details by Aarti Rana. Talks were described as reasonably good. The words of the U.S. president hinted at cautious optimism after U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner concluded a thorough, productive meeting in Moscow.
I don't know what the Kremlin is doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened. It's a terrible thing. But I thought they had a very good meeting yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. He would like to end the war. That was their impression. Now,
On the Russian side, President Vladimir Putin, it seems, has accepted portions of new American proposals, part of a widening effort to halt the more than 2-year conflict. His aides echoed that tone, calling the discussions very useful, constructive, and highly substantive. And yet, even with the praise, a compromise is still elusive. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov pushed back on reports that Moscow had rejected U.S. proposals outright, suggesting room for continued negotiation. Back in Washington, the U.S. president added that the Russians very strongly want a deal. Meanwhile, U.S. efforts continue to secure peace. White House officials confirm Witkoff and Kushner will meet with Ukrainian envoys in Miami on Thursday. But the talks come at a precarious moment for Kyiv. Ukrainian forces have been losing ground along the eastern front, and a sweeping corruption scandal is shaking the government to its core. President Zelensky's chief of staff, once the lead negotiator with Russia, resigned after investigators searched his home. 2 cabinet ministers have been dismissed, and a former business partner of Zelensky is now under investigation. The final outcome of the meetings is eagerly awaited. Aarti Rana for DD India. Well, the situation between U.S. President Donald Trump and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is currently defined by an ultimatum, a breakdown of dialogue, and a significant escalation of military pressure. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on Wednesday confirmed he held a respectful and cordial phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump about 10 days ago, framing the conversation as a potential opening for diplomacy. According to reports, Maduro told Trump he was willing to leave Venezuela if he and his family received a full legal amnesty, including the removal of U.S. sanctions and the end of a flagship case before the International Criminal Court. Maduro also said that steps were being taken towards a respectful dialogue between the two countries.
I received a phone call and spoke with President Donald Trump. I can say that the conversation was in a respectful tone, and I can even say it was cordial between the U.S. President and the President of Venezuela. I add that if this call means there are steps towards a respectful dialogue between states, between countries, then welcome dialogue, welcome diplomacy, because we will always seek peace. Welcome diplomats, welcome peace. Peace yes, war never, never in the like.
A group of Democratic and Republican U.S. senators filed a resolution on Wednesday that would block U.S. military action against Venezuela without congressional approval after President Donald Trump said a land campaign would begin shortly. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Tuesday cited the fog of war in defending the follow-up strike, saying that there were explosions and fire and that he did not see survivors in the water when the second strike was ordered and launched. The U.S. military is ramping up its presence in Puerto Rico, deploying Osprey aircraft, naval ships, and additional personnel as Washington intensifies pressure on Venezuela. Despite the heightened tensions and the U.S. assertion about closing Venezuelan airspace, officials in Caracas confirmed that deportation flights carrying Venezuelan migrants from the U.S. were scheduled to resume. Venezuela's government granted permission for an immigration and customs enforcement flight to land. The Trump administration revoked the temporary protected status previously granted to over 600,000 Venezuelans by the Biden administration, making them vulnerable to deportation. Anamika Pandey's report for DD India. And as Australia is all set to roll out one of the toughest social media age rules in the world, in a first-of-its-kind legislation from December 10th, anyone under 16 in Australia will be blocked from creating or using accounts on major social platforms. That includes Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat and YouTube. Facebook and Instagram began shutting down 500,000 accounts of users under 16 years old on Thursday. Meta also started blocking the creation of new accounts for under 16 users in Australia. Hundreds of thousands of adolescents are expected to be impacted by the ban. And moving on, Dhaka woke up to mild tremors early this morning as an earthquake struck the capital and surrounding areas around 6:15 a.m. According to India's National Centre for Seismology, the quake measured 4.1 on the Richter scale, with its epicenter located in Singri near Dhaka. There was no immediate report of casualties or damage due to the relatively shallow depth. The tremor was felt lightly across nearby districts, briefly rattling households and waking up residents in parts of the capital. Now, experts have repeatedly warned that Bangladesh remains highly vulnerable to major earthquakes as it lies along 3 active tectonic plate fault lines. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. India marks Navy Day, honouring a combat-ready and Atmanirbhar maritime force safeguarding the nation's seas. Operation Sagar Bandhu brings relief to people in Sri Lanka as India rushes critical aid while NDRF intensifies rescue efforts in cyclone-hit regions.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, India celebrates the Navy Day today as the force stands as an equipped, trained and ready to defend the nation's maritime interest, safeguarding the seas that power India's economic rise to Viksit Samriddh Bharat. Well, the country salutes the courage, discipline and dedication of the past and sailors who have made the Navy a combat-ready, cohesive and Atmanirbhar force. Well, the wreath-laying ceremony was held at the National War Memorial in Delhi to mark the Navy Day of the year, honouring the valour and sacrifice of Indian naval personnel. CDS General Anil Chauhan and Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi laid wreaths as part of the tribute. The observance highlighted the Navy's pivotal role in safeguarding the nation's maritime frontiers. Also, President Draupadi Murmu has extended warm greetings to Indian Navy personnel, veterans and their families on the Navy Day. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "The nation salutes the brave men and women who safeguard our maritime borders and national interest with courage, vigilance and unwavering commitment. From securing trade routes and strengthening the blue economy to leading humanitarian missions, the Indian Navy embodies discipline, compassion and responsibility." While Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan too greeted the brave men and women of the Indian Navy, he said, and I quote, "Our Navy stands as a symbol of India's maritime strength, vigilance and commitment to safeguarding our national interest, from securing our vast coastlines to ensuring peace and stability in the Indian Ocean region and beyond. The Indian Navy continues to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, courage and service. I salute all naval personnel, veterans and their families for their selfless service and sacrifices. May you continue to inspire the nation with your valor and commitment." Unquote. Also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has extended greetings on the Navy Day to all personnel of the Indian Navy. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "Our Navy is synonymous with exceptional courage and determination. They safeguard our shores and uphold our maritime interest. In the recent years, our Navy has focused on self-reliance and modernization. This has enhanced our security apparatus. I can never forget this year's Diwali, which I spent with naval personnel on board INS Vikrant, wishing the Indian Navy the very best for their endeavours ahead." And Defence Minister Rajnath Singh too extended best wishes to all the personnel and families of the Indian Navy. He said that as the largest resident naval power in the Indian Ocean, the Navy continues to uphold India's maritime interest with valour, vigilance and commitment to Atmanirbharta and anchors India's journey towards Viksit Bharat. Rajnath Singh added that the high standards of professionalism and commitment showcased by our Navy and our naval personnel over the last year give me immense confidence that the Indian Navy stands ready to safeguard and advance our national maritime interest. The minister wished the Indian Navy every success in all its endeavours. And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is set to introduce the National Security and Health Security Cess Bill 2025 in the Lok Sabha today. The legislation aims to strengthen funding for national security and public health initiatives. The bill proposes a cess on machines installed and processes undertaken for the manufacture or production of specified goods, along with related provisions to boost the revenue. Well, Sitharaman will move the bill for consideration and passage during the session. And India's Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Sarbananda Sonowal, praises the 11 years of leadership and guidance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Minister Sarbananda Sonowal lauded how his innovative vision have been transformative for India's northeast.
The area which was all the time declared to be the disturbed area, now it's become the new engine for India's growth. Congress has totally failed to study Northeast and also to discover the available potentialities, possibilities and possibilities of Northeast. But Honorable Prime Minister, after becoming, particularly in 2014, when Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji have taken over the responsibility of the nation as a Prime Minister, he has given full concentration, and particularly most backward region.
Well, India's aviation regulator has launched a probe into Indigo's severe disruption after days of delays and cancellations blamed on pilot shortages and stricter duty norms. Now, India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation initiated an investigation on Wednesday into the extensive operational breakdown at Indigo, which saw hundreds of flights disrupted nationwide. The carrier faced more than 200 cancellations in a single day and delays touching 10 hours at major airports, including Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru and Hyderabad. In November alone, the airline cancelled 1,232 flights, with almost 62% linked to crew shortages. The situation deepened after stronger fatigue control rules took effect for the pilots. Airline Pilots Association of India on Wednesday said the operational disruptions at Indigo due to crew issues point to a failure of proactive resource planning by dominant airlines. Now, Indigo has announced calibrated flight cuts while DGCA continues oversight to ensure passenger hardship is reduced and service reliability restored. And Sri Lankan President Anurakumara Dissanayake has expressed gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for India's timely assistance following the devastation caused by Cyclone Ditwa, describing the support as a sign of the close and enduring relationship between the two countries. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "I express my sincere appreciation to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his message and for India's steadfast support to Sri Lanka following the recent adverse weather. India's prompt assistance under the Sagar Bandhu initiative underscores the depth of our partnership and the enduring goodwill between our nations," unquote. Also, President Dissanyake's remarks came as Indian teams continued relief and rescue efforts on the ground. Another Indian Air Force's C-17 Globemaster aircraft on Wednesday airlifted to Sri Lanka a readily deployable Belay Bridge, an urgent requirement to restore road connectivity to areas cut off in the wake of severe devastation due to Cyclone Ditwa. This modular bridge can be deployed in hours at locations where existing bridges have been washed off or damaged in the floods, allowing trucks, ambulances and others carrying essential aid to reach. It will help restore road connectivity in areas cut off in the wake of cyclone. And the aircraft also brought in 500 water purifiers and 22 personnel, including engineers and doctors, to strengthen the relief efforts. While IAF's Mi-17 V5 helicopters carried out sustained missions, delivering 9 tons of relief material and rescuing 3 survivors from the affected areas. Well, with unwavering commitment, determination and compassion, India's National Disaster Response Force teams continue life-saving operations in Sri Lanka. The teams are on the ground in Badula, working through a painstaking and complex process to retrieve those buried under landslides. Well, South Africa stunned India with a historic run chase to seal the second ODI by 4 wickets in Raipur on Wednesday. India set a massive target of 359 runs after a dominant display of batting prowess by Ruturaj Gaikwad's maiden ODI century and Virat Kohli's 53rd ton. KL Rahul added an unbeaten 66 to round off the innings. In reply, South Africa lost Quinton de Kock earlier, but Temba Bavuma and Aiden Markram steadied the chase. Markram's 9th ODI century anchored the innings, while Matthew Britske's fluent 68 and Devald Brevis's half-century provided vital support. In the death overs, Corbin Bosch and Keshav Maharaj produced crucial cameos to seal the chase. The Proteas triumphed by 6 wickets, levelling the series at 1-1. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, we can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.